everybody. I am Danielle Sanders from General Dynamics Mission Systems. As you saw on the screen, this is our very last Breakfast Club from 2020, right before the COVID pandemic hit. As many of you will note, this is our reality. This was our reality for quite an amount of time. So we're really excited that our new reality is this beautiful virtual event, and we have 40 people here. So this is the biggest group that we have had yet on a Breakfast Club. So thank you all for joining us this morning. It is so wonderful to see everyone's faces. And today's guest speaker is incredible. She is incredibly inspiring. And I want to point out that this is her very first time in this format being a guest speaker. She's never done this before, even though, as you will find out, Linda Dulye, our wonderful DLE founder, is going to be speaking today. So let me pull up her journey line real quick. So on the screen here is the journey line. This is Linda's journey line that charts her personal and professional highs and lows. You'll receive a template and instructions on how to create one at the end of this meeting. But I want to introduce Linda formally. Linda Dulye is the founder and president of DLE and Company, a leader in workspace engagement practices that help companies and their employees go spectacular free. Since 1998, Dulye and Company has partnered with General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, Rolls-Royce, Tyco, Cigna, Cardinal Health, United Technologies, Bobcat, DRS Technologies, Thermo Fisher Scientific, the Army Corps of Engineers, and other respected organizations to proactively engage their workforces through innovative and interactive communications and collaboration practices. Her community involvement has been extensive, volunteering as a hospital pastor minister, an elementary school tutor, a greeter in the world-renowned Tanglewood Music Center, and a leader in the local African Catholic community. She instructs emerging entrepreneurs in E4All in the Berkshires and serves on the board of Pittsfield Economic Revitalization Corporation. Her steadfast support of civic, community, and business vitality has earned her the prestigious Berkshire 25 Award for creating impact. Linda and her husband, Roger, enjoyed taking lake living in the Berkshires with visiting her family, her 3 grown children, and rescued animal and bird companions. Committed to be fit, Linda rows, swims, cycles, spins, and kayaks. And now, please join me in welcoming Linda. I'm going to turn this over to John, who's going to do a question and answer type of interview, get to know Linda more, have her tell us her story and her life journey.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I appreciate that. I've had the fortunate experience of knowing Linda now probably about a year. I joined around when COVID started, and when presented the opportunity to moderate and ask Linda questions, I had to take it because I love talking to Linda, and I was also fortunate enough to tell her story in my own podcast. So I've known Linda a little bit, but I also realized that when I spoke to Linda, I had no idea the background and exactly what she's been through. I thought she was just some woman who created a networking group and she was an awesome lady. But when I dug deep down to get to know her, I was quite pleasantly surprised. So I'm hoping that with the questions I ask Linda today, you can get a sense of who she is and why this journey line is such a cool thing to do for your own life and how it's affected her and yeah. So without further ado, Linda, thank you for being here in your own group. And yeah, so my first question to you, Linda, is I wanted to know, you have so many things on this journey line. One of the central things, though, is entrepreneurship, and I was curious how your entrepreneurial career began.
John, before I answer, please
Yes.
Introduce what you do.
Oh,
where you are.
Okay, yes. So I'm in Boston. My name is Jonathan Katz. I'm in Boston, and I do twofold. So I created Blendy, a handheld portable blender, back in my college dorm in Springfield College. And I also full-time do wealth management for Raymond James. And I recently just became an accredited asset management specialist, which doing both of those is very tough while studying. But so my life is kind of crazy, but I love it and I wanted to pursue both. And that's a little bit about me.
Based in
But
Boston.
Linda, yes, yeah.
Okay, so how did my entrepreneurial career begin? And John's put up to some really thoughtful questions that actually made me realize new aspects of my life that I hadn't examined, I think, closely enough. But working for a family business is when my entrepreneurial career began. I had, as a kid, exposure to two family businesses under one roof. My mother had a commercial printing company called Walden Printing Company, and my father had a chain of weekly newspapers. And I started working for my parents when I was 8 years old. I started first in a job on the bindery floor of the shop, and I worked my way up. And this was a huge promotion. By the time I was 13, I got to write obituaries for my dad's newspapers. And then I became a reporter at 15. And that was, other than working at the YMCA day camp in my area and mowing lawns, I worked for my parents until I was a senior in college. Um, and it was a privilege because I look back and I say I got to see organizational and operational aspects of both businesses. And every day over, whether it was the dinner table or breakfast, I had to hear conversations about making payroll, losing a client, winning new business, or hiring employees, investing in the business. I realized very quickly how important relationships were. I came from a very small family, but we had an open door and a very welcoming environment. And there were people in my home all the time coming to see my family. And I think that welcoming spirit is something that we've infused in the DLE as well. So I think I learned very quickly the essence of what it took to run a business, and what it took was a lot of sacrifice because I didn't have my folks home. It was a 24/7, 7 day a week operation. And the sacrifice was I learned quickly I was above no task, and you're there for your clients and your employees at whatever it takes.
Yeah, most definitely. I like that a lot. And Linda, you had mentioned your parents, and I was curious, how did your parents, and I know your mom's a big part of your life, how did they inspire you in your life or in entrepreneurship or just in general?
Yeah, well, let me just start with my folks. So you have Ann and Ray Dooley, and my parents came from very, very humble beginnings, and they were extremely different. My mom from a very, very entrenched Italian family. My dad was Czech. They were 21 years apart, but they were common in their very humble beginnings. They had no inherited connections to any established businesses. They did have dreams, and they made those dreams happen. And the biggest of their dreams really happened through adversity. And I love telling the story. And there's actually a photo in my office right there of what I'll tell you about. But one of the low points you see on my journey line is when I was 8, I witnessed my family business burning down. I vividly recall I was called out of my classroom. I was asked to go down to the principal's office, which my parents told me never to be ever in. And when I got there, I was told to go get my lunchbox and walk down to my parents' business. I don't think they do this today. Their business was located about 6 blocks from my elementary school. And when I got there, I got to see what was our second home engulfed in flames. And that's a pretty hard thing for a kid to process. But I look back and I'm sure my parents were terrified. I know they were. But I remember my mother talking constantly through this adversity about how lucky we were because it was just property and not people. And nobody was injured, and it didn't stifle their dreams. And so what I realized is that the flames really forced them to re-examine everything. It became a greater opportunity for them to come up with a whole new game plan and a whole new goals that I don't know that they would have maybe as readily. They took a lot of risk. They purchased a much larger and newer facility. It was at least 15 times the size of the original structure. My mother attempted to take out loans, but in the 60s, women running businesses were an anomaly. So my father had to sign for them to purchase printing equipment and to turn a small town print shop into a major commercial printing company with national and international contracts, 24/7 shifts, expanded workforce, and most of all, cutting edge technology. I remember in the 70s, I know that's a long time. I can't believe, no, it was the 80s. My mom purchased a Goss community press, which was a showcase press, and her business became really a showplace for Goss to take prospective customers. From the adversity, also, my dad incubated three new weekly newspapers, and he had to open up three new satellite offices. So that was highly inspirational. Could have been the worst thing to watch your family business burn down, and it made it just blossomed new opportunity. I have two more inspirations, and one is my grandmother. My grandmother had an arranged marriage at the age of 15 outside of Naples, Italy. It was like, if any of their Godfather fans, it's when Michael Corleone meets Apollonia and the family's walking behind and they get married the next day. Okay, that's my grandmother. She was one of eight. She left behind her parents, and her eight siblings came to America through Ellis Island, couldn't speak any English, and had no family here. But she had a really big dream, and she wanted her two daughters to go to college, which was pretty unheard of at the time. And so my grandmother went to work at an Avon factory. She put lipstick in a tube, and she enabled those two daughters to go to college. My mom did not graduate from college. She met my dad and started working. My aunt did, but she was probably one of the biggest hearted person I've probably ever known, and the most innovative. Before I married an engineer, she was what engineering was back in the day. She could figure out and engineer anything because she was so fiercely independent, had to find solutions on her own. My other inspiration was my brother. Um, and that was really later in life, in my 20s and 30s. At 24, my brother was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease. He was 6 years older than me, and he was given 6 months to live. But my brother, and I always looked at him and said, "You got the same DNA as me. I don't get this," was fiercely determined, no matter how many days or months he was in hospitals, that he was going to make it. And he stopped doing chemo, went on a holistic medical therapy that was trailblazing. He blossomed in his career, which was in broadcast television. But he made it clear to me that the privilege of taking a breath without any assist from a medical device, a breath of air, was one of the greatest gifts that you could ever have. And my brother did beat the odds. He was one of the longest surviving Hodgkin's patients in the U.S. He died right after the towers went down in 2000, and right after 9/11, and at 52, but really
Yeah.
taught a lot in that time.
Wow. That's wow. Oh, thank you, Linda. Thank you for sharing. That's amazing. I'm sure we can all relate in terms of all of our motivators and inspirations in life. And that was a nice story, Linda. Thank you. My next question is going to take a little bit of a turn, but I'm curious to know what made you want to choose a job right out of college versus starting in a business or starting your entrepreneurial career.
Yeah, well, okay. Everyone asks that. I'm glad I did what I did. I needed to discover who Linda was. I grew up with a lot of shadows around me. My parents' business success gave them widespread notoriety in their industries, in our community, and well beyond. I grew up being Ray Dooley's daughter and Ann Dooley's daughter. I didn't have a name. It was not Linda. I was Ray Dooley's daughter and Ann Dooley's daughter. And then I had this seemingly perfect brother who was 6 years older than me. So when I was in school, every single teacher would ask me, why couldn't I be more like my brother? He was such a great guy. So, and then I went to Syracuse University, where both my dad and my brother went. So where was Linda? I really needed to forge my own path, and I needed to discover my identity. And that there's just no way that would have happened, John, if I went back to my beautiful small town of Walden, New York, and continued to go back in my family business.
Mm.
I needed to know where no one knew me, where no one could pronounce my name or spell my name. and I needed to get a job on my own terms. And I really did, because my first job out of college was as a daily newspaper reporter. My dad did not help me. I made sure that wasn't going to happen. I got landed a daily newspaper job in Philadelphia. I graduated. I packed up. I moved in my first apartment with my lab at the time, Coley, and I started my personal life, and I did it on my own terms. And I just needed to figure out who Linda was. It took a long time. It took like 20 years, a process of discovery. But through each of those changes, and you see a lot of job changes when nobody was changing industries and companies on my map, each one of them taught me new cultures. I learned bureaucracies and bosses, how to have to make friends where I didn't know anybody, how to start new relationship at work and get people to trust me quickly. And in essence, it grew my confidence and my network, my knowledge, but most of all, my personal brand.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I think sometimes we underestimate how much you can actually learn from a job, because I know when I was at Datadog in my sales job, I everybody asked me, oh, why didn't you just do blending? But I needed to learn sales. And I feel like you had to do a similar experience, and you had to learn a different industry and a different way of life other than what your parents had done. So I can appreciate that.
Great
Yeah.
parents, great family, but a
Yeah.
little bit overarching.
Yeah. So when did you know it was time to start your consulting business?
Yeah, I had the privilege of working for amazing companies, and most notably GE and Allied Signal. I worked for really, really demanding bosses. Worked for Larry Bossidy at the time at Allied Signal, was one of the biggest CEOs globally. At GE, I got promoted every 14 to 16 months. I moved very rapidly through my 7 years into 4 different lines of businesses. I needed to keep challenging myself with learning new industries, learning new business practices. God, I was an English major. I was a liberal arts major, and I needed to figure out business. And thank God I got to start in my family business. But I knew that I also needed to find what I loved most. And it really was the people side of business, which enabled me to go to college. As my dad would tell me, the janitor has enabled you to attend Syracuse University. And that is true in any business. It's about the people. And so I fell in love with helping organizations engage their workforce and bring out their best through communication and collaboration. My last corporate job, which was at PSE&G, gave me something that I'd never had my whole professional career at GE or Allied or Duracell or Gray Advertising. That was the ability to manage people. It was usually 2 people and an intern. I got to manage a department of 100 people that
Wow.
included marketing communications, executive communications. We had all of our advertising. It was a massive, and true to my GE roots, what was the first thing I did is I downsized the department in half. That was an interesting experience as well. But I got to my last corporate job and I said, man, I have learned from the best companies. It is now, it's time. I've discovered my passion. And it was 1998. I was sitting in my car for my 90-minute one-way commute to PSE&G, lovely. And I called up my husband, Roger, and I said, I'm tending my resignation today. I need to do it. I didn't have a game plan, didn't have it on the napkin, but I said, I need to do it. I've seen the best. I know what I want to do. Started Dulye and Company January 2nd, 1998. Got my first client, Lockheed Martin, Fortune 50 client in 2 months.
Wow, that's amazing, actually. So, I mean, it kind of goes to show you that you don't always need a plan. You can just always have an inkling and just kind of pursue that. Yeah, and have a passion. Exactly.
And people
Yeah.
can see it. And by the way, the value of a network. I always kept in touch with my GE, my Allied, my Gray. My network was how I got that first account.
Mhm. Yeah. So I'm going to take it back just a little bit to when you're employed. I'm curious personally because I think it's interesting the human perspective and mindset after you have such an adversity with 2 layoffs, seemingly coming semi close together, right, in this journey line. So how did you react to it, and then how did you come back to then have one of your biggest uphill swings in landing the GE job, which is obviously an amazing feat?
Yeah, I went to college, but nobody had it in the syllabus. What happens when you lose your job?
Mm,
Right? I didn't know. I didn't have the game plan for that one. And it is very, very humbling because I loved my job. I was a newspaper reporter. I was living the dream, and the publisher of my newspaper decided to close down the business and reorganize it and laid everybody off. And I had my Moonstruck. If you haven't seen it, go to Netflix. Great movie. I had my Moonstruck moment where Cher smacks Nicolas Cage in the face and goes, "Snap out of it." When I was lamenting how could this happen to me, woe is me, and I had to go physically to the unemployment office, stand in line and file. And I just said, you know what, I can't do this. I mean, my parents enabled me to graduate debt free from college. What a gift. I just need to figure out what I can do. And it's not a reporter because it's lousy pay, lousy hours. But what are the skill sets I have that lend themselves to another industry? I love asking questions. I'm curious as hell. I write without fluff. I instantly try to connect and learn people and learn what is their environment. And I realize there's this thing called communications and corporate communications. And I got a job as a communications manager at Drew University. It wasn't what my degree was in, but it was what my skill set was in. I got my master's there, debt free. And then I moved into corporate life. I moved into gray advertising, and you see from there where I went. But serendipitously, had I not gotten laid off from my first job, I would probably have still been a newspaper reporter for 10 more years because I loved it. You know, I mean, it was just a door opener. And I realized I could do more than newspapers. I could do more than reporting. And from that adversity, I got to see what my true skill set was and the applicability in industries.
it's amazing. So, Linda, how did then the DLE come into existence?
Yeah. So the DLE, well, we got to look back at what was going on. First of all, I mentioned about I'm a graduate of Syracuse. My dad, my brother. Philanthropy is very indigenous in my DNA. So I grew up with a dad very much giving back to his alma mater, and so did I. But writing a check to the annual alumni fund is interesting, but not impactful. And I, I didn't know what difference I was making. So combine that with I feel like I wasn't doing much for my university to what was going on in the job market. And 2008 was a really bad time. Market was tanking. Really, it was like 2020 for new grads trying to get a job. And I created this concept, and I saw it with new college grads coming into the workplace, not knowing how to transition. That there's nothing that's preparing them for career immersion, developing their career, networking, communication skills, multi-generational collaboration. I mean, I designed it. I came up with the concept of an immersive retreat. I went to the dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, who was a friend, and I said, this university can pioneer through me something that no one's doing, and that's preparing young grads to hit the ground running and stand out in those companies. They're not getting syllabuses that tell them when their test is coming, or by the way, your company is going to get sold tomorrow. And she got it, and we pioneered it, and it was a hit, and we opened it up across the 13 colleges at Syracuse University. I funded it, seeded it with clients of mine who became the faculty because, man, they could learn like mad from a weekend with millennials, and they needed to connect with them back in their workplace. Big what's in it for them. And for 8 years, we ran it in partnership with Syracuse, and then forged new terrain in 2016. You see DLE 2.0 and 3.0. 2.0 was getting out of Syracuse and going now for an audience of professionals, 20 something to 40 something, predominantly regional. I had moved to the Berkshires and I wanted to really help re-engage the workforce here through young professionals. And then with COVID, it became international. I mean, we went into from in-person experience only to remote everywhere experiences and increase our programming by 427%.
Amazing. Wow, that's a crazy just evolution of it. But that's how I joined. And And the DLE is an amazing experience because of how connected I feel like everybody is, and how they, I mean, I got referred to do this by a person who sometimes comes, but not always. And that was O'Neill. That's right. I almost forgot his name, but O'Neill's a great guy, and he always spoke so highly of you, Linda. And so I'm so happy to get the opportunity to speak to you today and get to know you, and everybody can benefit from trying to get to know somebody in the DLE at least, and taking that extra step. Yeah.
Can you wake up at 7 o'clock on a Friday morning, be connected instantly with an international, diverse, motivated group of people? Look right here.
Yeah, it's true. So I have one last question for you, Linda. With all this being said, you've obviously had a crazy and tumultuous life, and also fun. But my one question is, when you're not working, which you seemingly always are, what do you do to unwind and kick back and relax?
Yeah. And that's important, by the way. You have to. I find water every single day. I swim in it. I swim every single day at a community rec center and down the road in Dalton. I row on it. Not now. It's icy. I live on a lake, by the way. It's icy out there. But water really is my oasis, and it is also a daily discipline for me. I have a trainer. I used to be a gym rat. COVID hit. Now my trainer comes to my house. It's not the same thing. Roger ordered a Peloton in November. That hasn't arrived yet. So my spin has kind of like gone down. I used to spin every day. But I also love spending time with my family. I have a great family. I have a very understanding husband. I have wonderful kids. I have a lovely daughter-in-law, Kirsten. She's on this. We love spending time together with our animals, and with dear friends. And when you live on a lake, you have spontaneous socialization all the time. Everyone loves to drop by a lake house. And go back to when I said I grew up in a house where the door was wide open to anyone and everyone coming in. That's kind of like how our house is here. And we love, whether it's friends coming by or new friends we're going to meet for the first time because they just got a new boat and they're stopping by and saying, "Oh, that's a house. Where'd you build your house?" Asking us questions. So the other is philanthropy. And you heard it, Danielle. I am very, very active in giving back in my community. I believe although I'm not from here, this is my home now. And whatever I can do to make the Berkshires a better place, I fiercely give my heart. And also, I open my wallet and want to help make that happen. But my time and my talent is much more significant. Treasure is easy. And I don't say easy in that it's easy to come by, but that's not what makes the difference. It's when you give your time and your talent. And then this is my biggest philanthropy effort ever, the DLE. And this is how I actually unwind. As much as we do 24/7 everything, I find peace in this group, and I find just amazing new discoveries in me every day through everyone here.
And you could make the argument that's your patch of blue during the day or during a Friday. Yeah,
all the times between
right.
My consulting business. This is such an amazing balance for me, the DLE.
That's right. Well, amazing. Well, thank you so much, Linda. I appreciate you taking the time to do that. And I hope everybody could learn a little bit more about Linda. I'm sure you did. Just with this journey line, I really encourage everybody to take a second and look at it and create your own.